The S&P 500 and the Nasdaq notch record highs as private payrolls data reflects a slowdown in hiring, raising hopes of a rate cut soon. Nvidia surges 5% to reach a market cap of $3 trillion, overtaking Apple to become the second highest valued stock on Wall Street after Microsoft. Asian markets trade largely higher following a strong handover from Wall Street. The GIFT Nifty is also suggesting a higher start for the Indian markets. Crude oil bounces back from its 4-month lows. Brent gains about 1% to trade around $78 a barrel. Precious metals also rally after bond yields slip on softer than expected payrolls data in the United States. The RBI's Monetary Policy Committee meeting is underway with the policy decision due tomorrow. The CNBC TV18 Citizen MPC expects the RBI to keep rates unchanged at 6.5% with no change in stance from withdrawal of accommodation. Expectations on the timeline for the first rate cut, though, are various. And NDA leaders unanimously pick Prime Minister Narendra Modi as their leader of the alliance, gear up to stake claim to form the union government for the third consecutive term. The India alliance terms the verdict to be a political and moral defeat for Prime Minister Modi and says that they will continue to take steps to realize the people's desire to not be ruled by the BJP government. Is the weekly options expiry today, and you're watching a brand new edition of Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. Yeah, we are coming to you live from the HDFC Sky election headquarters in the Mumbai News Centre. I am Hormuz Fatakia. And let's first take a look at how the Asian markets are doing. It is a fairly good start in the Asia Pacific considering the handover that we had from Wall Street. The Hang Seng is up almost 1%. The Taiwanese index is up almost 2% now. The Japanese indices that were underperforming in yesterday's trading session are also leading the gains today. Both the Nikkei and the Topix, which is the broader market index, both of them are trading with gains of well over 1%. So it's a good start on the Asia Pacific. The South Korean indices are shut today on account of a holiday. Pull up the GIFT Nifty as well, and that sentiment seems to be rubbing off on the GIFT Nifty. The implied open is suggesting another gap up start for our own markets. Remember, we are recovering from the massive losses that we saw on Tuesday, and we are almost back above what we had closed last Friday. So the market is indicating, the GIFT Nifty is indicating a good start for our own markets as well. Now, moving over to Wall Street now, and all three indices ended higher on Wednesday. The S&P 500 closed at fresh record highs, and the Dow Jones added close to 100 points. The tech-heavy Nasdaq also advanced nearly 2% to a new record, led by a surge in shares of who else but Nvidia. CNBC's Kate Rooney gets us a wrap of all the action on Wall Street.
Markets were all up higher for the day, with the S&P rising to a new record, powered by Nvidia's rally, and slightly weaker labor market data gave hope to investors for a possible rate cut. The Dow up 96, the S&P 500 higher by 63, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq up 331 points. Private payroll growth slowed to a 4-month low today, according to data from payroll firm ADP. Companies added 152,000 jobs in May, below the consensus estimates for 175,000. Nearly all of the hiring came from the services sector. The data points to a further slowdown in hiring, and it comes ahead of the Labor Department's jobs report on Friday. Boeing launched its Starliner capsule to space today following repeated delays. It is the Starliner's first crewed flight and a big milestone for Boeing as it tries to gain footing in the commercial space race. The spacecraft, carrying 2 astronauts, is due to dock at the International Space Station on Thursday around noon. The astronauts will stay there for a week before they return to Earth, and if the mission is a success, NASA could authorize the company to begin making regular trips. That's what's happening here in the U.S. Back to you in Mumbai.
And Nvidia is the stock that is in the talking point overnight as well. Those shares surged 5% and hit $3 trillion in market cap on the back of the AI boom. It passed Apple to become the second largest public company after Microsoft. On an intrinsic value, it is really tough to hit $3 trillion. That is according to Aswath Damodaran of the NYU Stern School of Business. Listen into what he had to say.
No, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but on an intrinsic value basis, it's really tough to get to $3 trillion. That said, though, if you're designing the perfect momentum company from scratch, it'd be it. Yeah, you've got a great story, a CEO who sticks to the story, no distractions, is able to meet expectations in the short term because they've set the game up. and you got a market that contributes to the mix. I mean, I think that you're seeing one of the great momentum plays of all time playing out in front of you. And I think my basic story is bigger than it was a year ago, partly because of what NVIDIA has delivered, and partly because of what AI is showing it can do in the overall economy and market.
Aswath Damodaran there sharing his views on NVIDIA. But positive cues continue across the globe, and this time from Europe. And that is ahead of the European Central Bank's rate decision later today. The French CAC gained 69 points. The German DAX surged close to 200 points, while the British FTSE settled slightly higher, but with a positive bias. The Pan-European Stock 600 was up 0.8% at the close, led by technology stocks. The tech index gained 3.7%, its biggest single-day performance in more than 4 months. In the big global queue for global markets from the region, the European Central Bank will be announcing its rate decision later today. The ECB is widely expected to be the first major central bank to cut interest rates by 25 basis points. Now, CNBC Steve Leisman compares the ECB's rate path to the US Federal Reserve in this report. Take a look.
European Central Bank set to cut interest rates before the Federal Reserve. The question is the ECB early and is the Fed late? Well, by one measure, the Fed is maybe late. A little-known inflation index that allows European and U.S. inflation to be compared shows that they are exactly in the same place. The HICP, that's the Harmonized Index of Consumer Prices. It's an international standard. It shows that as of March, U.S. and European inflation were the same, 2.44%. That's out to the 100th decimal. Ian Shepardson from Pantheon tells me business surveys say a downshift is in train in the U.S., and you should be looking now to trigger a policy shift because it takes so long for it to take effect. There's a real danger that if you blink, you'll miss the soft landing. Shepardson points out that the Fed, going back to 1971, has typically cut rates before inflation even peaks. 22 months, for example, in 1971, 6 months in 2001. If the Fed cuts in September of this year, it will have done so 31 months after peak inflation. There are many who say the Fed shouldn't use the HICP because it doesn't include housing, and yet U.S. housing inflation is lagging in U.S. inflation indices what the market prices are telling us, perhaps leading the Fed to make a mistake. And whether the Fed is late and the ECB is early, well, that depends on the outlook for U.S. and global inflation. Bruce Kasman of J.P. Morgan says, personally, I think inflation will prove stickier, so I think both central banks will be delivering less easing than the market has priced in. With some softer U.S. data recently, including the recent ADP report, markets have somewhat raised the probabilities of rate cuts this year. But the final answer of who is early and who is late will be known if the early starter avoids a rekindling of inflation and the late starter avoids recession.
And that's all we have on the global market front. But how will all of these overnight cues impact our own markets? We have our research team joining in with how the trade setup looks like, the stocks that are likely to be in the news, and some F&O cues as well. But first up, Vivek joins in to get us all the market cues that we need to watch out for today. Vivek, good morning. Positive handover from Wall Street. Again, looks like the momentum is likely to continue.
Good morning, Harmal. Absolutely nothing to complain about when you're talking about how the handover was and especially how Indian markets closed yesterday. Like you already mentioned, U.S. markets, two of the U.S. market indices hit fresh record highs yesterday. And very interestingly, NVIDIA now surpasses Apple as, the second highest market capitalization company. So that is something very positive in terms of the handover. Now, talking about oil prices yesterday bounced a little bit off. But remember, they're still hovering near 4-month low. So that too continues to remain good news. Brent futures yesterday hovered around the $78.5 a barrel mark. Now coming to the Indian markets. Indian markets yesterday, they had a tale of their own. Indian markets have now gone ahead and reverted to the pre-exit poll level. So that is in itself quite significant and has recovered half of the losses that they made on the day of the counting. Now broad-based claims, when you're talking about what Nifty reclaimed, it reclaimed the 22,600 level yesterday. Along with that, very interestingly, all of the 50 Nifty stocks ended with gains in yesterday's trading session. Broader end of the markets, the gains were even more stronger, and especially yesterday the advance decline ratio was strongly in favor of the advances. FMCG stocks yesterday continued to see follow-on buying, especially names like HUL, etc. Moved almost 8% in a single trading session. Along with that, the auto stocks too continued their march higher. Yesterday, the auto index gained over 4%. Now, one of the key levels or the indices that we were tracking was the VIX. The VIX yesterday from very elevated levels day for today cooled off 30%. So that is quite significant. Asia as well as Gift Nifty is indicating a positive start for our own markets.
The market seem to be taking heart as more clarity emerges on the formation of the government. Vivek, thanks a lot for that. Let's now take you through some of the stocks that you need to watch out for. And PSUs continue to remain in focus. BHEL is the first one that you need to keep on your radar today. That is because it has received 2 orders worth around 7,000 crore rupees from 2 subsidiaries of Adani Power. So that stock will be the one in focus. Saw some recovery in yesterday's trading session, but there were certain PSUs that did not see recovery even as most of the pack recovered, and those were some of the defense PSUs. There you can see that Bharat Dynamics, Cochin Shipyard, Garden Reach, all of them taking a knock of as much as 10% even in yesterday's trading session. So it'll be interesting to see if these PSUs see some bit of recovery in today's session in line with the market sentiment. IEX came out with a business update for the month of May. It looks to be positive because of the peak power demand that India has seen in the month of May. Volumes overall were up 29% year on year, and the day ahead market volumes also were up around 7.5%. Remember, IEX has been an outperformer in the last few trading sessions, so we'll watch out for if the momentum in this stock sustains as well. Century Textiles is the one that you need to watch out for, the Aditya Birla Group company. Now, its real estate arm has signed a joint venture with Barmalt India for its luxury residential group housing project in Gurugram, and that project is set to have a revenue potential of as much as 5,000 crore rupees. So Century Textiles should be on your radar as well. Torrent Pharma is the other one. That company has signed an agreement which is a non-exclusive patent licensing agreement with Takeda Pharma, and that is for commercializing its novel gastrointestinal drug in the Indian markets. And Minda is the other one that has also signed a tie-up with Innovance Auto for its electric four-wheeler portfolio. And lastly, NBCC has received orders worth close to 500 crore rupees. So lots of stocks in focus, and you need to keep an eye out on all of these names. Lastly, we head over to Nigel now, who is joining in with cues from the FNO space. Nigel, good morning. We recovered most of Tuesday's losses, back above Friday's close. What's the setup looking like now?
Well, that's right. Hormuz, in yesterday's trading session, a lot of the domestic money was at play because the FIs, they continue to sell, and we need to see more of the same. And just the same point that I've been making, you need to keep your SIPs going. You're in for the long haul, and you will make money. So just keep that in mind. What did the FIs do in yesterday's trading session? They sold in the cash market, but they covered some, shorts in yesterday's trading sessions. 20,000 contracts is what they covered, and in fact, they added close to around 20,000 long contracts. So that's where the swing factor is close to around 40,000 contracts. They continue to remain net short with close to around 83% of their positions on the short side. And if you pull up a chart, you'll see that from 3.55 lakh net short contracts, it's come down a little bit to around 3.11 lakh contracts. That's the point I was making, the swing factor of close to around 40 lakh contracts. Now, yesterday's close was actually very, very good, and it was heartening to see because we took out some crucial technical levels. And if you just pull up, the high of the previous session, you pull up the low of the previous sessions, a couple of days ago, you have both those levels out. We, in fact, retraced close to around 66% of that entire fall that we saw, which is good news. So that explains why, in fact, I'll say technically it's a very, very good close. What are the levels you're looking at? Well, in yesterday's trade, we bounced off, and we bounced off in style. And the 20 and the 50 DMA, both of them got taken out in yesterday's trading sessions. That becomes a bit of a reference point. You don't want the 22,400 mark to go on the downside. Even for the Nifty Bank, we managed to conquer decisively over the 20 as well as the 50 DMA. So let's see how things pan out. Today, you'll have the weekly expiry element as well to play out for the Nifty. Good bounce yesterday, but follow through is something that you'll be looking forward to. And let's see whether or not the bulls have enough ammunition to push this market higher. For the time being, I think maybe, in fact, we'll see some bit of consolidation even from these levels. Back to you.
Some bit of consolidation. Nigel, thanks a lot for that. And as Nigel was highlighting, it's the weekly expiry as well for the Nifty. So we'll keep that in mind as well. Time for a short break here on Power Breakfast. Up next, we get you all the post-election verdict developments on the other side. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Back with us on Power Breakfast. Now, NDA leaders met in the capital last evening and unanimously picked Prime Minister Narendra Modi to lead the alliance. The BJP has fallen short of a majority, and two regional satraps, Chandrababu Naidu and Nitish Kumar, are likely to play kingmakers. Top leaders of the alliance met at the Prime Minister's residence for likely talks on government formation. Leaders from 15 parties, including the BJP, were present in the meeting. The NDA is gearing up to stake claim to form the government for the third consecutive term, though there is no confirmation yet on when the swearing-in ceremony could take place. Abhimanyu Sharma gets us all the details. Abhimanyu, over to you.
Well, for now, India is all set to expect a coalition government after a period of 10 years, and Modi 3.0, of course, seems very much imminent now, given the support which has been pledged by all NDA partners to Prime Minister Narendra Modi for his prime ministership, and they have already pledged support, and it remains to be seen what kind of distribution with respect to cabinet berths would be given to several partners within the NDA, be it the TDP, JDU, JDS, Apna Dal, and the LJP, who have already pledged their support. For now, the NDA camp seems united as far as the current letter of support is concerned, which has been issued by all NDA partners who had met at the PM's residence, and they have pledged their support to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And what exactly would be the distribution of cabinet berths, which is going to determine the structure and constitution of the new government? No common minimum program yet has been announced, and even as opposition leaders, several of them have questioned that what exactly is going to be the common minimum program. That is something which all eyes, of course, would be on, since it's not just the BJP with a clear majority, but several other allies who have their own set of expectations and demands from the electorate, which they are going to present before the government, before the combined coalition, which is going to swear in all likelihood.
Abhimanyu, thanks a lot for that. Now, leaders of the India bloc also met in Delhi to discuss the future course of action. Sharad Pawar, Akhilesh Yadav, Abhishek Banerjee, M.K. Stalin and Uddhav Thackeray were all in attendance along with senior Congress leaders. The alliance also issued a joint statement thanking the people of the country for their support and said that the verdict was a political and moral defeat for Prime Minister Modi. The statement also said that the India bloc would continue to take steps to realize the people's desire to not be ruled by the BJP government. In fact, Abhimanyu also caught up with Dipinder Singh Hooda, the newly elected Congress MP from Rohtak, and asked him about his opinion on the prospects of the NDA alliance after 10 years of the BJP being in power. Listen in to that conversation.
First of all, I'd like to thank the people of the country and my state, Haryana, for voting in big numbers in our favor. People have voted to protect the constitution, to strengthen our democracy. People have voted to restore balance in our polity. The kind of arrogance with which BJP was governing our country, people have shattered that arrogance. And the moral mandate is with us. The numerical mandate may be with the BJP at the moment, although they don't have majority on their own, so any government which will be formed will be a coalition government. But the moral mandate is with us, and moral mandate is magical. What magic moral mandate does, will, in the course of time, we will know how things pan out. But long live Indian democracy, and I'd especially like to thank the people of our state, because from Haryana, people have basically indicated that they seek a change, not just in centre but also state. Not only we won 5 Lok Sabha seats, but we also got 48% vote share, which is 1.5% more than the BJP. So we got more vote share than the BJP. We led in 46 assembly segments out of 90 in Haryana, which is more than the BJP. BJP led in just 43 assembly segments. So overall, the mandate in Haryana is clearly for change. Our vote share in Haryana, 48% that we have been able to get in Haryana, is highest in the nation. This is the highest vote share that Congress or the India Alliance has been able to get in any of the states. So it's a matter of great satisfaction for us, and we are very thankful to the people.
Dipinder Hooda there speaking to Abhimanyu. Now moving on back to corporate story, CG Power will foray into the consumer business by selling appliances. Now that is the word coming in from Murugappa Group's Vela and Subaya. Speaking to Shireen Bhan on the sidelines of the EY World Entrepreneur Awards in Monte Carlo, where he's representing India, Subaya said that he was betting big on electric mobility and semiconductor businesses. However, he ruled out any acquisitions in the near future and betting on organic growth and partnerships. Listen in.
A new business that we're adding in that mix is the consumer business, because a non-compete got over in 2021. So that continues to have a lot of opportunity. For the consumer business, we basically start with fans and pumps and kind of, the more general electrical appliance areas, and then look at new areas for growth beyond that. So for the first couple of years, we'll just be establishing a beachhead in those areas, and then we'll start looking at what we can do from a growth perspective. Government has been very, very fast with all of its approvals. We've just started the design and building of the factory in Gujarat, but these are quite complex factories to build. So our estimates are it'll be 2026 before we can basically start operations at that factory. But we're kind of going full steam ahead. We've got I would say over 50% of the senior level memberships of the team basically recruited, and we're basically working on the design and build at this stage.
Time for a short break on Power Breakfast. Up next, we get you cues from the commodities market. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and Manisha Gupta now joins in with all the cues from the commodity space. Manisha, good morning. What are you picking up?
Well, some bit of a respite really from the kind of profit taking that we were seeing in the previous week. So some buying is returned back in many of these commodities. I'll start with gold, which has gained over 1% overnight. There is decline in bond yields and dollar index on the back of weak U.S. private payroll data. But remember, the markets will wait out for the U.S. non-farm payroll data that comes in tomorrow. With gold, silver also gained up back about $30 an ounce. We are looking at gains come back in case of copper. That gained up by a percentage point as well. And so is the case with the Brent crude prices, up 1.5% overnight, snapping the 5-day losing streak. Remember, the crude oil prices fell by 7% in the previous week. So we're looking at some buying coming back. And $78 a barrel is back in case of Brent prices here. The markets are working with the probability of a U.S. Fed rate cut in the month of September. The probability now is at 67%. Well, the Bank of Canada cut rates by 25 basis points yesterday. The European Central Bank meeting is today with an expectation that 25 basis point of a rate cut is a given. I mean, that has been something that has been factored in by the market. That's exactly what really seems to be supporting across commodities right now. So some opportunity buying on the lower side really happening now.
Buying the dips, I guess, people within commodities. Manisha, thanks a lot for that update. And now, after a long delay, which stretched to almost a decade, Boeing's long-delayed Starliner has finally taken off on its journey to the International Space Station. Two NASA astronauts, Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore, are on the capsule and will take the spacecraft through its paces over the next week after it docks with the International Space Station later today. If successful, the Starliner will join SpaceX's Dragon capsule as a regular transport option for astronauts and space agencies. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Power Breakfast from me and the team that put this show together. Thank you so much for watching. Bazaar Morning Call right ahead.